spook easily startled.
Have you ever explored the depths of fear? Have you ever wondered what depravity dwells within the imagination of a storyteller that prompts them to exhume horrors untold and expose those horrors to unsuspecting audiences? Some are repulsed, and some are shaken. However, there are those who are invigorated. So to those demented souls, we invite you to journey inward into the dark bowels of human imagination. Press play, and you will discover what's in the podcast.
They just invited the wrong guy.
He's coming!
It began the most terrifying horror series of the decade. Now, the Driller Killer's back. Slumber Party Massacre, Part 3.
And welcome back to the next edition of What's in the Podcast, where we are tackling the Slumber Party Massacre franchise with myself and my incredible friend from across the way, JT Tally Smith. Hey. So I have been having no end of fun talking about this franchise with you. This is so good. But for now, this is the time when we have to talk about the unfortunately derided, but also very interesting Slumber Party Massacre 3. This one is directed by Sally Madison and was written by Catherine Siren. Came out in 1990, about 3 years after the second entry. Now, to my knowledge, this one was never intended to be a Slumber Party Massacre film, but again, because Roger Corman needed a third installment, he bought the script and he just decided, okay, we'll just swap the title, we'll make it a Slumber Party Massacre. So this is why this is an in-name only sequel, but the ingredients are all there. Slumber Party, Killer with a Drill, some different things ensue in this one. So in preparation for this, I watched this one for the first time recently, and you said this is your first go around with this one as well?
Yeah, just watched it. It's hard to find. I was even gonna pay money to rent it or buy it or whatever on VOD, but yeah, you can only watch it on the YouTube link, and it's interesting. You can tell the quality goes in and out on the YouTube link, someone films a TV with the VHS or something.
Absolutely. Remarkably, and normally I'm against bootlegging or any kind of piracy like this, but this is actually kind of the problem that has been, and this is why I've been so avidly against streaming services right now. They are doing some horrible things with their content where they are just purging content without worry or wonder of if it's going to be seen any other way. And there's a lot, and this is unfortunately a very common occurrence that's happened throughout the years, where a lot of movies never make the transition to the next format because the studios and the distributors don't really feel that it's worth the effort. So because of that, there's a lot of horror films that have not even made the transition from VHS to DVD.
Yeah.
Like where can you find a DVD of The Boogans?
Right.
Yeah, or Blood Beach, or stuff like that. I mean, it's like, where do you find these? And a lot of it is because it's tied up in red tape, and a lot of people involved just don't feel it's worth the effort to try to cut that red tape. But Slumber Party Massacre 3 is like another one of those ones, and I think because it didn't have the impact that the first two had, I think a lot of people kind of feel that we can not have that one. But some people at least found the effort to at least put it up on YouTube for people to still see. So with all that out of the way, what was your reaction to Slumber Party Massacre 3?
I think I liked it more than you did. That's what it sounds like.
I
didn't love it, but viewing I'll even say trilogy, before we get to the remake, viewing the trilogy as a whole, I enjoy that each of these movies, kind of as I said in the previous episode here, that there's no lore behind Killer. You do have the reoccurring character from 1 to 2, but it's a completely different set of rules, completely different type of killer. You had a real man slasher killer, just a random guy that loves killing women. Then you have this Freddy Krueger supernatural ghost guy. And now you have sort of although this came out way before, but this sort of Scream effect where it's one of the group, but you don't know who, and it's kind of a mystery. And I thought that was kind of cool. I liked that they tried a different angle for each of these, which that part I liked. It definitely, I would not have believed this was written and directed by women if I hadn't looked it up.
Yeah. I suppose, well, I suppose there's no beating around the bush. I think it kind of feeds off of what I said in the last video about how knowing the production history can actually affect your opinion. I think my opinion may have been affected knowing certain aspects of the production on this one. Sally Madison, much like Amy Holden Jones, wanted to direct a movie, and Roger gave them the opportunity. The only difference is Sally Madison did not like horror, but pretty much took whatever gig. And I think because of that lack of enthusiasm, I kind of felt that a touch. Whereas both the first two films had a personality and kind of had a director who had a vision, this kind of felt like someone just trying to do a gig to show that they can do the gig.
Yeah, that definitely there's nothing about it that just stands out. It doesn't have its own flair. It really is just the cookie cutter slasher killer kind of thing.
I mean, to their credit, they do. Well, I do agree with you. I liked the whodunit element to this one, which this one is the only one that has that. Well, no, I can't say that because again, we're not talking about the fourth one yet. But this one does have a whodunit element, which definitely does add some spice to the proceedings, which I definitely appreciate. I think it also is the fact that where the first two are so much fun, this one is actually relatively dead serious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think to the point when you have those moments of Roger Corman obligatory exploitation, that just feels kind of out of place, ironically. Especially, of course, the customary partying, pillow fighting, and the ceremonial removal of tops.
Yes.
Even that just didn't feel, at least in the first two, because of the tone of those movies, you could just treat them as like, oh, these movies are being ridiculous. But this time when you're seeing it, this feels dirty.
Yeah, it's truth or dare, you're not going to have a group of heterosexual women daring each other to do a full strip tease. She even says, do a strip tease and go all the way, or don't fake it, or something like that. Like, I'm not asking my girlfriends to do that for me.
No.
It's just that it was very, very creepy. And the fact that you have this character that wasn't even part of the dare, and she's just like, I'll do it. Here's my tits. Like, okay. Whereas at least in the second one, you have this girl that just had to take her bra off, and it's, again, total fantasy, silly. But you can see, they're so caught up in this music. They are drunk. Mm-hmm. They are drinking a lot. They're having fun. And this one, it really was just like, I don't know, so strange that they dared each other. I don't know.
Yeah, and even down. Oh, and also, of course, the pillow fighting, which always seems to amount to the very poorly sewn together pillows exploding and making a mess. And immediately, any movie, I'm just like, I'm not cleaning that up.
No. Well, I loved in the second one, I know we already talked about, but she's literally standing on the couch holding it and throwing the feathers everywhere. Like,
yeah, I was like, firstly, I would never touch a feather pillow ever. Feather pillows are not as comfortable as reputation precedes itself. And I would sue the people who manufactured that pillow for being so poorly constructed.
Yes.
Yeah. So, But the killer in question on this one, this is where one aspect I know this movie did come under fire for. Ironically, it kind of pulls, well, it came under fire from LGBTQ groups because of the motive of the killer. Because they don't outwardly say it. To the credit, they don't outwardly say it, but it's hinted that because I'm just going to flat out say, we're just going to go right into it because I feel like this is important to talk about. But the killer, the motive hints that the killer was molested by his uncle and at a very young age. And because the killer is highly disoriented, obviously is having issues of their own, they themselves, out of some kind of sexual frustration or confusion, is going on a killing spree as some one could. And there's a part where he looks at the picture of his uncle and says, "This one's for you, uncle," or something like that. It's like going, so are you doing this as a big fuck you to him, or are you doing it as a tribute to him?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it felt very much like a tribute.
Yeah. Well, there's even the cops who knew the guy's uncle because his uncle was a cop. And they even hinted the idea that their uncle was a little funny. And so it's like, is the attitude of this movie saying that if you have any sort of leaning, if you've been any kind of sexually confused, you're going to become, well, in a way, it's kind of the same conversation. Well, when we tackled Sleepaway Camp, there was that conversation that was had as well. And I kind of wish Logan were here. Logan were here to talk about it, but I don't feel that this one was able to develop it as well, or at least, I feel like we went to a hole here, but I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it definitely, as soon as he wasn't able to perform, I just said right to the screen, like, oh, he's the killer.
Yeah.
It was that very cliche of, I can't be a man and perform.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's the woman's fault. And so that's why he's on this killing spree of women.
But there was just aspects of that just made me think about, like, if in the hands of I think it all really comes down to the idea that, again, because this director was not comfortable tackling this kind of genre, I feel like if she, I don't know. I don't want to blame the director on this one. I don't want to blame the writer on this, but there is something to be said when you're into the project. It does show. Yeah. It does legitimately show. And you can elevate and I've seen times where the script is atrocious and you can elevate the material just through technique and even just by the way you direct your actors at the same time. And from what I heard, according to what I've heard on set, the actors all, apparently it was a good set to be on. The actors did like the director because the director apparently still was very dutiful and still did the job. So all of them committed to it. In fact, one of the kills in the movie involves someone jumping through a glass window.
Yeah.
That actress went for it, and she actually apparently did the stunt herself. So it's a case where the person Sally Madison knew the assignment, did the job, but didn't push it in any kind of direction that could make it more. I feel
they were trying to have some sort of message in this film the way you had in the others, but if you don't love horror, then you don't understand it enough to be able to wrap it around this message. So instead it came out very clunky and broken is it because he was conditioned to be gay and that's why he's killing women, or he just is sexually stunted because of what happened to him and he takes it out on women? The two things don't really meet. And I think that comes through a lot of, someone that understands the points you have to hit in a horror movie, but maybe doesn't understand why. Doesn't have that love of why these things happen in a horror film.
Actually, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. And I think that's why even I myself am having a hard time kind of verbalizing my discomfort for it, and why a lot of other people weren't crazy about it, because they didn't properly flesh out what message they were trying to go for here, or what. And because of that, because it's not as developed as it could have, it ends up being detrimental, because now you have people like going, well, what is this you're saying is like when you have any kind of gay leanings, you're automatically going to become a serial killer. I mean, this is, I mean, yeah, Sleepaway Camp, actually, even Silence of the Lambs has had to court this particular discussion, because both of those had people like wondering, is this what you're trying to say? But at least with those, you are able to take the very, rich material that you're given and are able to at least come to some kind of conclusion. Whereas here, this one just felt like they were just balls out just saying, or it just kind of felt like they were just giving it to you and just saying, yep, this is it.
Yeah. There was ideas, but it just wasn't folded in neatly.
Exactly.
Interwoven into the plot. Yeah.
Well, I like what you said about it could have been just enough. If you didn't even have to have the whole thing about the uncle, it could have been great if it was just about a guy who's just so inadequate and he can't handle it, and his fragile male ego just can't handle it.
Yeah.
And takes it out on the women. That right there would have been a hell of a lot more, actually a heck of a lot more unique.
Yeah.
And a lot,
his manhood doesn't work the way he wants it to, so he penetrates them with a drill.
And it's like, it's not my fault, it's their fault. They're not getting, revving my engine like it should. And funny enough, if they had kind of just done that, I feel like, well, there's a scene in the movie which the director did not want in.
Yeah.
But I feel like if they had gone with that, I feel like this scene probably would have actually been more resonant with that particular theme. So the scene in question, do you want to tell them about it, or do I?
I was wondering who is actually going to bring it up.
Yeah,
I will say the one moment in this film that was absolutely terrifying for me as a woman was the sexual assault of Maria. Was the character's name Maria?
I believe so, yeah.
It would have been, I think, a good scene, because it really does show the fear that women have from men.
Yeah.
But tonally, it didn't fit with the rest of the movie at all. Like, we were supposed to be viewing Maria as the hot chick. She's the one who just loves splashing her boobs everywhere, and it's fun.
The sex positive character.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, well, I enjoy a naked woman, definitely. So watching her dance around and having fun, it's like, yeah, this is great. And now she's stripped down to just this lacy thong, but it's not jovial at all. And these scenes, this kind of tone does work, because this is true horror. It just came out of nowhere, and I think, it was like they didn't know what direction they were trying to take this in. Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Roger Corman, this was a reshoot. This scene was an add-in that Sally Madison was vehemently against. She did not want this scene in this movie, because, again, it all goes with the fact that because Sally Madison was not hot on horror, and I think a lot of it is because and to her credit, she probably isn't comfortable with a lot of things that horror tends to tackle. I mean, I could definitely understand why she wouldn't be jazzed about movies like maybe say Miss 45, because not eager, so she's not eager to tackle scenes such as this. So I can understand where she's coming from. And to her credit, watching the scene, I'm like, yeah, I can see why she's not comfortable with this scene. Though, I mean, credit to her for making this scene as uncomfortable as she probably felt doing it.
Yeah. I think what could have saved that scene is if Maria had lived. It was the way she then immediately after this, while she's still, half naked on the floor, dies. That's what made it so uncomfortable. But I think if we see her as sort of the hero using her body, because she isn't someone who is afraid to show it off and stuff. And so she uses her femininity to gain the upper hand. And that's where I thought they were going with it. And then when he just kills her, that's when, this was all just unnecessary sexual assault.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that would have made the world a difference if they had kept her alive. If all of that anguish that she's going through, if it actually amounted to her surviving, I think, yeah, that would have at least made. And frankly, I think, yeah, I wonder if it's just because they didn't want to go through the hassle of a rewrite of a character that should be dead,
Yeah,
but now is alive again. I wouldn't be surprised if they just didn't want to go through the hassle of a rewrite. I wouldn't be surprised.
maybe because
But
it really does show her intelligence,
yeah,
her will to live, and what she'll do to fight for it. And it's almost sex positive because, as I say, this thing
yeah,
that women have, they're supposed to be ashamed. She's able to use it to her benefit. And
yeah,
I think, yeah, if she had come out on the upper hand, that's what I thought they were going to do. And I was
yeah,
horrified at this scene, but I was kind of rallying in that moment, like, oh, she's got this. She knows this, how to work this guy inside and out. This is
yeah,
great. And then they just discard her, and that's when I felt
exactly.
like, what was that?
Ironically, you want to know another movie that actually did a scene similar to this, but vastly more successful and ironically directed by guys? Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the ice buckets, the ice tub scene.
Yes.
How good are you? Huh?
Yes.
That scene has came under fire for kind of similar reasons, but this was a case of a woman taking control of the situation and actually not only surviving, but actually kind of swaying a character to the point where it actually ended up benefiting her, where she was actually able to appeal to,
Yes.
of all people, Leatherface's softer side. I was actually kind of that scene is amazing to me because, and even Caroline Williams has openly commented on that controversy because she said, I read the scene as someone taking control of it using what she has at her, using her own assets and taking control of it. And that scene immediately was going in my head as I was watching this scene in Slumber Party Massacre 3. And I was like, yeah, I wanted her to survive this because this is a horrible thing to happen to someone. And to just cap it off with a pretty horrific kill
Yeah.
is just makes you, honestly, it feels like a prelude to the torture porn movement, like
Yeah.
to like some of the really nasty torture porn where you're seeing them torment and then they get killed, and not even like the good kind of torture porn either, just the kind that just makes you feel nasty. It's Saw 7 as opposed to Saw 2.
Yeah. It didn't fit the tone. And I'm so glad
Yeah,
you brought up that it's a reshoot, because I have to admit, I was very confused as to why the other two women are just standing
yeah,
off scene staring at this.
yeah,
I'm like, anyone can get.
yeah.
And that was, one of the things I actually enjoyed about this movie was these women were fighters. How many times was this guy hit over the head with,
Oh
like,
yeah,
or something, or that big heavy crystal bowl that
yeah,
let me put this, smashes him over the head. Like, they're running back towards him to hit him and to save each other. And I loved that we were seeing that as a motif, and that was exciting. And then it gets to this scene where he's finally, in a way, incapacitated. He's not looking at his surroundings, and I'm like, well, now's the time. Did you run out of lamps? What happened? Like,
oh man, and I will say this: I do love the karmic runaround of the final kill of the killer, where he gets killed by his own drill.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, though I do wish they had not done the moment of compassion in that last moment where they kept him alive, when they had him incapacitated, because then it ended up costing, her friend her life when, he inevitably got out. And I was
yeah.
like, no, just, and they finally do. I just remember walking away from this one going, I need a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was good ideas in this film, but they were very different ideas that contradicted each other. and I think they
Yeah.
need to pick one and stick with it. And
Yeah. I think there is a lesson to be had in this where if you have a gig that you're not stoked on,
Mhm.
what ultimately, if you're expected to do the gig and do it, meeting expectations, sometimes the best thing to do is try your best to, make it work for you. Like try to move it in a way that kind of, I mean, I'll tell you now, one of the worst gigs I ever did, I did the Fantastics. I hate that play.
Oh,
I hate that musical with a fiery
I'm
passion.
not familiar with it at all.
It's a severely overrated musical. I hate it with a fiery passion, but I did it because in a very similar way to Sally Madison, I wanted to get in good with the people who did the troupe because they were doing some stuff afterwards
Yep.
that I was like really stoked to do. But I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to commit to this show, which I have told them. I got called into it. So here I am, like, okay, I'll commit to this role. And fortunately, I was playing Mortimer, who is a character who professes in death scenes.
Oh, okay.
So he's a totally pantomime character, and the whole thing about him is that he's good at doing death scenes. And the director let me just go ham on it. So they're doing a whole thing where I'm hanging myself, during the whole thing, and I'm going completely crazy where I'm just dragging myself by my hand, dragging myself this way, dragging myself that way, kind of thing, and then collapse on the floor, poke my head up, go Rosebud, and then I just collapse. And for people who have afterwards said like you were the best thing in that damn show.
Because you were able to find the joy in
Mhm.
something that you didn't ultimately love. But if you can find like that one, aspect of
Yeah.
it that you like, that usually, because I all the time I work on right now I'm doing mostly trailers for video games, but
Mhm.
I used to do feature films and TV shows, and all the time I would have to cut ads for movies I don't care about, or a TV show I would never watch. But once you just find that one thing that you're like, well, this is fun, or I like the song that I'm using, it can change it around, and I think that's what makes the presentation better. Like it looks like, oh yeah, there's something
Yeah.
that they liked here. Their mark is on it in some way. And yeah, that was what was missing from this film.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you were absolutely 100% right. The ingredients for this to be great were there. I love the whodunit. You're right. The idea that this one was actually a whodunit
Yeah.
could have been amazing, and it could have been unique to this movie.
And it was all
And you,
American, good looking guy. Like,
yeah, and even better, we even got a red herring or two thrown in,
mhm.
which actually added a bit of fun. This very like nowadays he'd be like the sexy Starbucks hipster guy who's just sitting there staring at them for no real motivation other than just lechery, just sitting there staring at him with this "I'm deep" face.
That whole scene of her coming home and he's just in the house, and I didn't realize he was the neighbor till later, and I'm like, she knows his name, but he's
Yeah,
clearly not okay. Like, why oh, that was so weird, so strange. I liked the one guy, they just kept calling him the weird guy. We still never figured out what his deal was. He was just the weird guy, and at one point
yeah.
in the movie, he died, and then there's like another, they realize, oh, he's not the killer, and someone even yells, there's another weird guy.
And I'm sad because that joke kind of got lost on me because it was like, yeah, or even just the fact that that same weird staring guy at the beach ends up going into the basement, and admittedly, yeah, but I'm there's a part of me like going, I have questions. I
Yeah,
want to know about this guy. If
so
he's
many.
not a killer, then what the hell was he?
Yeah, there was something weird going on, and
Maybe actually would have been kind of cool is if there was a flashback where he went in there because he saw someone going in there,
ah,
and maybe he went in there to maybe like stop him or something. Ill-advised, but maybe that would have been interesting. Like maybe like as the killer's revealed, nice big flash. But then again, that's kind of late 90s, early 00s filmmaking technique. And this movie came out in 1990, so we didn't
there
have
is
this.
sort of this strange I guess, moral that you could take away from this, where the creepy guys, the actual stalker and the peeping Tom, are not the ones to be afraid of, but be afraid of the guy who's in your friend group. Which,
Yeah.
I do enjoy, obviously, like the Scream movies where it's always someone in the friend group. That is scarier. But, peeping Toms are not cute and adorable the way movies tried to portray them. And it's
And
like, oh, he ended up calling the cops. So this guy who's spying on teenaged girls having a party,
yeah,
he was the hero?
still took it upon himself to, and actually I find it funny that the other character I sympathize with, and I was actually sad when he got killed because he was actually kind of likable, is the guy who goes out of his way to ask a pizza delivery girl for her shirt, which fun bit of trivia, that actress was in Friday the 13th Part 2. She was in the famous spear. She was in the lovemaking scene where the spear goes through them, which that in itself was a takeoff of Bay of Blood, but that's a different story. But yeah, that was that actress. And honestly, I love the exchange between them as he's negotiating for her shirt.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the effort that he went through, and I liked her attitude during the whole thing. But ultimately I was like, I like how when he gets in there with the pizzas, he doesn't act like a pervert or anything. Like, he just wanted to come to the party.
Also, I realized, like, it's not like you're their friend. Like, they already knew you. Like, they're gonna know if you're a pizza delivery man or not. He didn't need the shirt. He could have just showed up with pizzas.
Effort. It's all about effort.
The same. Yeah. He was fun. I liked
him. And I did feel sad when he got killed. Well, and I will say this, for Ken, when he reveals himself as the killer to everybody, he does do it in a pretty big and spectacular way. Where he just like, there's nothing there, and then just starts going crazy. I was like, well done. I would not see the likes of that again until Amber and Scream 5.
Fuck you, Amber. I'm not the fucking killer.
I know. Welcome to Act 3.
It's safe to say our feelings on this movie are kind of like a big old roller coaster here. We're going through the ranges of emotions here, because on one side I do reach out to Sally Madison for the fact that she did this gig begrudgingly, wanted to do good, and to her credit, it's a competently made film.
Mm-hmm.
It is a film that definitely does not feel in any way like choppy. It feels what's the word? I don't want to say artfully made, but it definitely feels capably made, where it's like, it feels very capably made. Like, if I were to see this reel and if she wanted to come direct, I'm like, okay, all right, this film definitely looks like someone who actually knows her way around editing, where to mount a camera. But on the other side, there is a double-edged sword where if she really believed in the project, I feel like we could have had something really amazing here. Yeah. So what are your final words on?
And I think it's something that I already said in this episode, but I think the reasons, like, you look at it from a whole, this movie's not great. It's all over the place. It's disjointed, but it isn't until you get into a conversation like we're having where you get to discuss pieces of it. The pieces are great. There's wonderful things about it. It just didn't go together. I guess it should have. I think there's really like 3 different movies in this film.
Yeah, and I think my feelings on this come from a lot of different ranges. Like you actually have pointed out, like at the start of this, I had definitely a lower opinion of this as you did. And I think a lot of it is when you put it next to all the other entries in this series, it is definitely the black sheep, because it's a lot more serious in tone. It's not as fun. And there doesn't seem to be like an actual vision for the film, aside from being, what people, honestly, this kind of feels like what the outsiders looking in on a movie called Slumber Party Massacre. This kind of feels like the movie that outsiders looking in would assume a movie called Slumber Party Massacre would be.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I think immediately that was going in my head because honestly, when I went to the first movie at your recommendation, and then of course when I saw the second one, it's like, sure, they're ridiculous, but there's such a special kind of fun that gives it personality and makes it stand out from the bevy of slashers that came out during this decade.
Yes.
As well. So we got to wrap this up. What is your top kill in this movie?
You know what? I hate that I literally just watched this for the first time and they're all kind of blending together. I feel like that kind of says a lot about this movie. I'll let you go first.
Okay, I actually have one from a character, one of those nothing characters, like the obligatory boys trying to get in on the party. There was one friend. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to bring up South Park here, the token black friend, who they send him back to the front door to apologize, but then the killer grabs the for sale sign and stabs him with it. Now, the reason why I love this one is that, again, if this movie had like a sense of fun that was kind of in touch with the first two movies, I loved the shot where he's dragging the body of the way, and I love how the sign is perfectly posted, where it's like still perfectly advertising that the house is for sale as the body's being dragged away. I'm like, if this movie went hard into the humor, this scene would be so freaking funny for me. But I loved it just because I was like, man, I think because I'm thinking of the movie that this would have fit better in, but even so, I still love the ingenuity of killing someone with a for sale sign, and the fact that for sale sign is still serving its purpose posthumously.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun one. And I really liked how, it's scary when you're so close to someone who can save you, but they don't know what's going on. And so that whole setup was really cool. I don't have a favorite kill, but I am going to bring up the kill of what was his name? Sort of the main boyfriend, the boyfriend of the main girl. He wore the leather jacket and had the earring. He looked like a bad guy, even though he was like, but his kill, I swear, he didn't die. It was like they were fighting. He got hit in the head and knocked down, and I kept waiting for him to pop up. And then one character is like, "Oh, you killed him." I'm like, "Really? That did it? Okay." I guess it kind of felt like the writers are like, "Oh, we don't have enough time to put in another elaborate kill, so we'll just say that he's dead now."
Yeah,
that stuck out.
That is that. It's rare that I encounter someone saying the best kill because it's the most confusing kill.
Yeah. Like, is that a kill?
Okay. All right. Okay, so for everybody, if you want to get a chance to have a peek at this one, actually, if you want to comment on it, I would love to hear everyone's take on Slumber Party Massacre 3. You can find it on YouTube. That was pretty much where we found it. Definitely watch it and definitely comment on it. I would love to have a conversation about this one, particularly with a lot of the things that the movie implied and a lot of the themes that it was trying to tackle. I would love to hear everyone's take on it. But in the meantime, if you are exploring the depths of human imagination, ask yourself this question: what's in the pot?